And it's just basketball. At the end of the day, it's just basketball.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe on the way in the door, my people. I hope you all are having a truly fantastic day today on this Monday, and we are going to get to the super thanks from last week. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the channel members. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Shout out to Gary, aka at G the Great One. Shout out to Adidas 20. Shout out to Dr. Les Barrett. Shout out to Dwayne S. Honor. Shout out to Thanos Snap Feminism. Shout out to Keith Brazel. Shout out to Charles Hookah. Shout out to In the Groove 56. And shout out to the newest member, very long time supporter of the channel. Shout out to Vernon Lee Warren. Thank all of you so much. I truly cannot thank you all enough for becoming members of the channel and for your continuous support. And without further ado, let's get to the super thanks. First up, shout out to @Swan Daily. This is coming from my If LeBron James teamed up with Steph Curry on Golden State video. And he says, I know this is more of a philosophical question that's outside of the realm of basketball, but what is your take on America being increasingly more radicalized? Since you brought up the negative ramifications of extremes, I thought I'd ask. I'm personally sick of it. People can't even accept a nuanced answer about anything these days. Bring it back to basketball. If you say that LeBron doesn't have much of a mid-range, these fanboys will threaten to unalive you. So I try to keep this channel pretty much focused on basketball. I've been debating whether to start another channel where we can get into some more serious type conversations. But so I'll give you an answer that, I won't go too in depth. But in general, first of all, I feel like the world in general is becoming more radicalized. And as I said in that video, to me, extremes of anything is a negative. Oftentimes, like, for instance, people will grow up with a terrible childhood. And so with that frame of mind, they think to themselves, well, when I have children, I'm going to do the exact opposite, not realizing by doing the exact opposite, for example, maybe your parents were super ultra strict. So you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do the exact opposite and be super lenient with my kids. But both of those things are going to create problems. And ironically, they will create similar problems. Because normally, if you're too strict on your kids, it creates a rebellious spirit, and which leads to the same thing as a parent who wasn't strict enough on their kids. Like, they'll still have that same lack of discipline, that lack of boundaries. And so, to me, extremes of anything is not good. Therefore, I try to stay in the middle, I try to keep my viewpoints in the middle, so to speak. Now, some of you fanboys may think that I'm extreme on your king, but see, we're different. We're dealing with a different thing. This is not a different of ideologies. This, with your king, this is a direct criticism of the way he goes about basketball that is, in fact, cheating the game. There is no middle ground when it comes to cheating. It's like either you're doing things the right way, or either you're living up to the standard that was set previously before you, or you're not. And so your king is not doing that. So I don't want to hear any comments from you ridiculous fanboys who think I'm too hard on your king. But yeah, in general, like I said, I think it's the extremes also remove logic from the equation, which this is what we're saying now. Again, bringing it back to LeBron James, this is why he has such a delusional fan base, because extremes of things bring about the absence of logic. You know, it just becomes either this or that, and no one can sit down and think for a minute and, you know, fathom that maybe the answer is actually somewhere in the middle. Like LeBron James fanboys who, you know, can't seem to, they have this idea that, first of all, they have the idea that just because you criticize something means that you're hating. Again, this is completely ridiculous. You can criticize something for what you see is wrong. That doesn't mean you hate it. Now, in the case of LeBron James, I don't hate him, but I do dislike, dare I say, him just by how he has went about the game and the traits and characteristics he has shown inside the game and outside the game. But anyway, shout out to @SwanDaily. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks, and thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, and this is coming from the same video about the Duck and Steph Curry potentially teaming up. Shout out to @Underdog5355. He comes through with the $2 super thanks, and he says, "Thanks, you actually changed my perception of the deer. Now I see the extremes that the NBA and the media go through to push this fraud." Shout out to @Underdog5355. Yeah, I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see the truth about LeBron James, you can't unsee it. And this is why I have a hard time believing people who say that they believe Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but then have LeBron James as number 2. I have a really tough time believing that that is actually possible. Because again, you know, we've said this over and over. If you have Jordan as the GOAT for things other than his resume, because to me, for me, it's things other than his resume. You know, to me, it's the intangibles that led to his resume. But to me, Jordan is the GOAT because he has that undying work ethic. He has the undying will to win. He has the never say die attitude. He has the killer mentality, and he has that need to dominate. He has the unwavering confidence, and he plays the game with integrity, and he lived up to the standards of those that were set before him, and he also continuously gave credit to the players that came before him, and he never called himself the GOAT out of respect for the players that came before him. Again, we all know this. Michael Jordan said it would be disrespectful to say that I'm greater than players that I never had a chance to play against. And so for all those reasons, and then you throw the resume on top of that, and then yes, to me, Jordan is undoubtedly the GOAT. So if you can acknowledge all of those things about Michael Jordan and then have LeBron James as number 2, I don't get it. I don't understand you, and I don't want to understand you. To be honest, I don't want to understand that, because to me, at that point, you have to ignore what you see. But anyway, shout out again to @Underdog5355. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks. Thank you so much for your support in the channel. And next up, shout out to @TheRealHeisenberg6182. This is coming from my Patrick Beck David exposes the hypocrisy of LeBron James video. And he comes through with the $10 super thanks. He says, "I am not a fan of PBD in the slightest, yet I see we share the same opinion when it comes to who is to blame for the state of the modern NBA. The fake king and phony GOAT is 100% to blame for not keeping the standards set by previous greats. His lack of personal accountability, no bag, and unwillingness to compete on both ends of the court has set a terrible example that the rest of the league followed. The product is completely unwatchable to me. Shout out to at the real Heisenberg 6182. And Patrick Bet David, I don't know much about the guy. I've seen a couple of interviews on his channel that I thought was really good, including one I believe with Kobe Bryant. But yeah, what he said about LeBron James being responsible, or I would have to say partly responsible, because we definitely cannot leave out Commissioner Voldemort in this, taking some of the blame. But LeBron James, as the face of the league, as supposedly the best player of his so-called era, he set the example for all of this. This is LeBron James doing. And so, I read an article the other day that was talking about LeBron James wishing he could have talked to Michael Jordan to see what Michael Jordan thought about his game, blah, blah, blah. And as you read these articles, the many articles I read, you can tell that they are slanted towards making LeBron James look as good as possible. All of the articles and media are continuously slanted into making the duck look as good as possible. And so when you got a league that backed a guy like this, and knowing, that he's responsible, for instance, again, it might not seem like a big deal to LeBron James fanboys, and I'm sure it doesn't because you guys are ridiculous, but not participating in a dunk contest is... I'm gonna try not to go too long on it, but this is another huge problem with LeBron James, is the fact that he does all these things, but he still wants credit for them. So he doesn't participate in a slam dunk contest, and then he comes out, wants to name himself as one of the greatest dunkers ever. He wants to pretend like every championship he had was the most difficult thing to win in the history of the game. Now, after 2016, this guy comes out and says, that one right there made me the GOAT. It was coming back from a 3-1 lead, and no one's ever done that before. And I was like, that one made you the GOAT. And then 2020 happens, and now he wants to act like this is the hardest championship to ever happen. It's like everything that has to do with this guy is somehow exaggerated past what it is. But this is the guy who set the example for the rest of the league. This is the guy who made it cool not to compete, who made super teams cool, who ruined the All-Star game, who made it acceptable not to compete while saying that you are a competitor. Made it cool not to compete while trying to convince the world that you're one of the greatest competitors to ever play the game. Oh, you have to tie me up and bury me 6 feet deep and lock me in a casket and drop me in the ocean and put me in the bottom of the ocean and dig another hole and stick me in a hole in the bottom of the ocean before I ever quit. Or the day I can't give this game my all is the day I retire. It's like he's ruined the competition of the league while simultaneously trying to pretend like he's one of the greatest competitors ever. So yeah, we could go on and on about this. But shout out to at the real Heisenberg 6182. Thanks so much for the $10 super thanks, and thanks so much for your continued support of the channel. And next up, shout out to at Swan Daily, again coming through with another $2 super thanks. And this is coming from my Dennis Rodman says Chicago Bulls would destroy the 2010s Warriors. And he says, do you think Jordan would allow Rodman to have a podcast if the medium existed in the 90s? I'm not sure if it's even a matter of would Jordan allow Rodman to do it or not, because Rodman was a player who, as we all saw in The Last Dance, Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan gave a lot of leeway. Like they understand that Dennis Rodman operated a certain way, and that, you know, that they were going to have to allow that to get the best out of him, so to speak. And so my thing is this: I believe that it wouldn't have necessarily been a problem if Rodman had a podcast. Well, first of all, depending on what kind of things he was discussing on the podcast. If he was discussing intricate workings of the team and, you know, that kind of thing, I don't think that would have been accepted. But more importantly, I would say this: as long as it didn't affect Rodman's game on the court, I'm not sure Michael Jordan or Phil Jackson would have had something to say about it. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at all the BS that these modern players go, and this is kind of what the video is about, you know, when we look at all the stuff that these modern players do, the biggest problem at the end of the day is that they are not competing on the court. If these players were getting on the court and truly giving their all, I believe people would have a lot less to say about them in general, no matter what they were doing. But the problem is they're not competing on the court. So I was watching something the other day, and I can't remember. It was some podcast, and I can't even really remember what they were talking about, except for the fact that they were mentioning the fact that when you win, certain things aren't a big deal. You know, when you're winning, if you're coming in late for practice or whatnot, people are not necessarily going to make as big a deal about it, except for if you're losing. And matter of fact, maybe it was Charles Barkley. Maybe they were talking about Joel Embiid. I think they were talking about Joel Embiid and him saying at the beginning of the season how he wasn't going to play any back-to-backs, which is completely and utterly ridiculous to say something like that at the beginning of the season. But yeah, it's like when you are winning, and when you're going out there and giving your all, more things are tolerated. Because at the end of the day, you're getting the job done. And again, I think even if these players were going out and truly competing in a way that we could actually see that these guys were actually going out there and really putting their heart out there on the court, I think that would be a slightly different story as well. Now, again, if you're not winning, it's probably still going to be a problem. But yeah, to answer your question, I feel like as long as Rodman is actually doing his job, I'm not sure if they would have had a problem with it or not. Especially because around that time, I feel like that was the time when we were seeing NBA players doing more and more things outside of the NBA. You know, you had people like Shaquille O'Neal rapping and in movies, and Dennis Rodman himself was in a couple of movies. So I feel like at that point, the players were starting to branch out more and more. But again, at the end of the day, you know, the important part is how you come to the job and how you come and do your job. So yeah, I think the problem with the modern NBA is, on top of them having all these podcasts, they aren't really competing on the court. Like, they aren't competing hard. They aren't competing like the stars that came before them, like the players who built the NBA for them to even make the kind of money that they play. Like, they don't have any kind of loyalty to teams or fans. And for that matter, I would have to say they don't have loyalty to the game of basketball. Like, it is literally all about money, fame, praise, and their brand, so to speak, which their brand should be dubbed as uncompetitive. It's the uncompetitive brand that they all play. But shout out to @SwanDaily. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks, and thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to at In the Groove 56. This is coming from the same video about Dennis Rodman saying that the Chicago Bulls would destroy the 2010 Warriors. And he comes through with the $2 super thanks. He says, thanks again for this video. Fans who are tired of the 90s always seem to think that the Warriors team would beat the Bulls of 96. Scoring against the Bulls is like a mouse in a maze with the cheese placed on the outside. The Bulls defense is like a pinball machine with multiple flippers and no escape route. As good as the Warriors offense was, the Bulls defense would negate it and capitalize with instant offense. It would be so bad that Rodman would put up a triple-double and the rest of the team would live at the free throw line. The Warriors might as well dress up like matadors without the cape and sword. Bulls in 4. Shout out to at In the Groove 56. And I must say, I agree with this. Like I said in that video, I mean, when you think about just defensively, again, defensively, there is no team in the modern NBA that has seen defense like the Chicago Bulls played with those guys, with Jordan, Pippen, Ron Harper, and Dennis Rodman. No team today has faced that type of defense, has faced that kind of relentlessness. And then, like I said, to top it off, you got the greatest offensive weapon in the history of basketball in Michael Jordan. It's just a wash. Like I said, at the most I could give him a game, and that's being generous. Like that game would come at the only way that game would happen is if Chicago was just had an off night. And I feel like, in the middle of playing so many games, that's possible. Chicago could have an off night and the Warriors could potentially get a game, but I don't think it's likely. I think he described this perfectly. On the defensive end, the Warriors would just be looking at something that they're just completely not prepared for. That nobody in this modern NBA is prepared for that kind of. And it's not just the defensive skill; it's the mindset behind the defensive skill. It's the Michael Jordan mindset that has permeated the whole team and made the whole team a team full of relentless defenders. And then the mindset of Michael Jordan, again, I can't remember what video it was that I did months ago, but it was talking about, I played a clip from Michael Jordan where he basically said that it was up to him, Scotty and Ron and Dennis to protect the weaker defenders. So this is not the LeBron James defense where LeBron James is just going to watch your man beat you, and he's just going to stare and watch this guy run all the way to the basket, because he's not going to waste his time bothering to try to use up some of his energy that he's going to use to jack up some threes to try to stop this guy from getting to the rim. We're talking about Michael Jordan, who has the mentality of not only being relentless on his man, but also keeping an eye out so that they don't try to exploit the members of the Chicago Bulls who weren't as great as defenders. I mean, this is a completely different mindset than how this me brand of basketball is played. Like the Warriors is the people are so focused on this skill thing, which again is another false thing. This whole skill thing is just like LeBron James' career has been manufactured, fanboys. The skill of the modern NBA has also been manufactured. Just like your King's legacy has been manufactured, the skill of the modern NBA player has been manufactured by changing the rules, by not enforcing the rules. This is the only way you get that more skill narrative. This is the only way that these players look like they're doing something, is by not enforcing the rules and by the rules that they have changed to allow offense to look more skilled. It is manufactured skill. So none of these teams in this stat pattern era of basketball, in this everybody is buddy era of basketball, in this era of basketball where everybody's trying to make it as easy as possible, they're switching on every single screen, which is completely ridiculous. These guys have not seen a Michael Jordan-like mentality, especially since Kobe Bryant left. But you know, the last few years of Kobe's career, he was on a decline because his body was failing him. But even then, Kobe has never had a team with that kind of defenders on him. Kobe hadn't had a team where, you know, I know Gary Payton played on the Lakers for a split second, but Kobe hasn't had a team with a Jordan and a Ron Harper and a Pippen and a Rodman all together. The Warriors would be overwhelmed pretty quickly. I feel like the first few minutes of the game, they would understand that they are in some water that they have never been in before. But anyway, shout out to @InTheGroove56. Thanks so much for the $2 super thanks, and thanks so much for the continued support of the channel. Next up, shout out to @StoryGames8520. He comes through with the $2 super thanks, and this is coming from my Destroying JJ Redick and his latest lies about NBA ratings. And he says the Dallas Mavericks and Golden State Warriors set the NBA record for most combined three-pointers in a single game with 48 on December 15th, 2024. Yet JJ points the finger at other people for why people are not interested in the NBA like that anymore. Well, what do you expect from anyone who is associated with Clutch Sports? Do you think any of them even know what the word accountability means at all? What do you expect from anyone associated with Clutch Sports? It is no surprise that the know-it-all, who's also a know-it-all like LeBron James, would point the blame somewhere else, because he too is one of the people responsible for perpetuating falsities about previous eras while he is complaining that people don't praise this modern NBA enough. It's the media's fault because they're constantly talking about it sucks. Even though every single article I read to you guys on here, you can tell it has a slant to try to prop up LeBron James in the modern NBA. Even though anytime you see anybody on mainstream media who may have a droplet of truth or a moment of clarity for a second to tell the truth, it doesn't come without someone else on the panel shoveling in a whole barrel of cap to try to dispel the truth that's being said. So yeah, no surprise at all with JJ Ridiculous there. But anyway, shout out to @StoryGames8520. Thank you so much for the $2 super thanks, and thank you for the continued support of the channel. And next up, shout out to @Dr3196. This is coming from my ESPN guest says the LeBron-Steph rivalry is the greatest in history. And this is coming from the thumbnail that says super duper clown, because that's exactly what this super duper clown was. He says, not once anyone ever thought it was a rivalry in the last 10 years. BSPN is like a bunch of overgrown teens trying to be TikTokers. Yeah, facts. I mean, to be honest, I can't even think of anything that I would label a true rivalry. I can't think of the last time I would consider two teams true rivals of each other. I feel like LeBron James missed his opportunity. He missed his opportunity with the Celtics Big Three, because the Celtics Big Three could have been his Detroit Pistons. That could have been the team that he stayed on, that he stayed with Cleveland, and that he battled until he figured it out. And not only in the process of sharpening his skills and sharpening his leadership to try to figure out how to get past the Celtics Big Three, he also would have gained that much coveted respect that he so badly wants. But that is not in LeBron James. That is not who he is. He is not the guy who sticks through the through the tough stuff. When the tough gets going, LeBron gets LeBron gets going to another team. So yeah, if someone can think of a rivalry that you thought was a fierce rivalry in the last 15 years, please drop that in the comments. But anyway, shout out to @the_Doctor3196. Thanks so much for coming through with the $2 super thanks. Thanks so much for your continued support of the channel. And next up, shout out to @DrLesBarrett921. This is coming from our Michael Jordan stats are more impressive than LeBron James. He comes through with the $10 super thanks. He says, thanks Uncommon for the shout out. LBJ trying to make stats the standard for being the GOAT is indicative of the acceptance of the decadence through self-aggrandizement mentality that's symbolized by LBJ. Remember when players actually said that they didn't care about stats, as interviewers would try to bring them up. Back then, players knew it was about the ring, so they intentionally downplayed the value of stats. The LBG propaganda machine has warped the thinking of LeBronites by stigmatizing rings as team accomplishments. That is facts. Although they don't seem to realize how LBJ's stats are super team accomplishments. Facts. Teams are made of individuals, and great individuals carry their teams to victory. Did LeBronites forget that MJ played his last game for the Bulls, scoring the highest percentage of a team's total points ever, while Pip was a decoy? Or that an ill-timed missed shot kept MJ from winning a game against one of the greatest teams ever assembled in the Celtics, when he broke a playoff record after recovering from a foot injury that was broke? LBJ had to be miraculously bailed out so many times that naturally he has his minions mobilized to mask his misadventures as the man, because he couldn't muster a way to win. So he's motivating and moving them out with the message to make the devaluation of rings make sense to them. LBJ can insult our intelligence routinely by regaling us with endless takes about his stats until the discussion shifts its focus to turnovers. That's hate. Shout out to @DrLesBarrett921 for such a fantastic comment, for bringing such facts that I'm sure you LeBron James fanboys are already typing your nonsense about. I mean, yes. I mean, again, just add it to the long list of things that LeBron James has destroyed in his time in the NBA. And yeah, that is this new movement towards stats. And this is what I say, is like, to me, when I'm watching these games today, it really looks like, in my opinion, it looks like everyone is stat padding. To me, it doesn't look like team basketball. Like, you don't see great sequences of team basketball anymore. It's the same thing over and over and over from both teams, running down the court, either jacking up a three or trying to beat their man off the dribble or off a screen, and then kicking it out for a three or getting a layup because it's only going to be one other person to beat to the rim. So, I mean, this is the era of basketball that we're living in, and this is all created by LeBron James. And this is, you know, this is the check my stats era. When, again, it's clear that a player like Michael Jordan wasn't playing for stats because, like Michael Jordan said, if I was playing for stats, I wouldn't have retired. Why would anyone be playing for stats? That doesn't even make sense, except when it becomes an alternate way to try to convince people that you're greater than you are. Who gets into sports? Who decides that they want to get into sports, whether it's basketball or football, and your thing is, oh man, I want to run up the stats. You know, I'm not thinking about winning. You know, if I want to win, I can figure out a way to put together some super teams or whatnot. But I'm gonna just run up my stats, and I'm gonna put together super teams instead of work for my championships. And that right there make me the GOAT. Fanboys, you guys are ridiculous, and so is your king. I hadn't said it this video yet. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Les Barrett 921. Thanks so much for the $10 super thanks, and thanks so much for your continued support of the channel. Yeah, that is it's just completely ridiculous that we're in this era of it's all about stats because we got all these incompetent superstars. You know, people like James Harden, you know, people like Ben Simmons. It's like Ben Simmons should have been out of the NBA. This is ridiculous. You know, people like Zion Williamson, people like Joel Embiid, you know, for that matter. But this is completely ridiculous. But this is the era we're in. It's all about stats, and it's not about championships anymore. Unless you're LeBron James. That's the benefit of the no accountability brainwashing that LeBron James has given his fans, is that when it's LeBron James and you win a championship despite stacking the deck, somehow it's a LeBron James championship. Somehow, magically, nobody talks about Kyrie. Somehow, people talk about LeBron James' Miami years, and they can talk about LeBron James without bringing up D Wade and Chris Bosh. Not only not bringing them up, but not understanding that D Wade was truly the leader on that team. And what I mean by that, because it takes a leader to actually do what's best for the team. And that's what D Wade did by saying, hey, you know, you do what you do. I'll find another way to be effective because I'm a good leader, and I'm willing to do something besides what I normally do. I'm willing to take on that role again, which should have been LeBron James because he was coming to D Wade's team. But we all know LeBron James can't do anything that's a challenge. He can't do anything that's going to require challenging what he can normally do on an everyday basis. But anyway, last but not least, shout out to @QQ1981. This is coming from did LeBron James really want critique from Michael Jordan? Because I don't believe he did, because if he really wanted it, he could have got it. He comes through with the $10 super thanks. He says, I thought LeBron wanted to erase the other number 23. Now he wants advice from him and wants to know what he thinks. Laughing emoji. Yeah, you know, this is typical LeBron James behavior, which LeBron James behavior and fans of LeBron James behavior. And this is, they double talk so much they can't keep their story straight. You know, 1 minute he's throwing a jab at Jordan, trying to tear down his era. In the next minute, you know, he's trying to act like a fan. He's trying to act like he wanted a relationship with Jordan. And I do believe LeBron James wanted a relationship with Jordan, but I don't think it's for any other reason than to prop himself up, to be honest. I think it's simply to be able to say, yeah, me and Mike were friends. Yeah, I just got done playing golf with Mike. Yeah, I just got done doing this with Mike. Me and Mike are best friends. We're better friends than Mike and Kobe was. Yeah, so I got to be greater than Kobe Bryant now because I'm better friends with Michael. That's all LeBron James wanted out of a friendship with Michael Jordan, is to be able to prop himself up with that friendship, so to speak. But anyway, shout out to @QQ1981. Thanks so much for the $10 super thanks. Thank you so much for the continued support of the channel. Thank each and every one of you who continues to support the channel week after week. Thank all of you who've been there since near the beginning, who've been there since the beginning. And as always, please continue to support all of the content creators who are giving you honest opinions, honest takes, and who are participating in the work of dispelling the lies that the mainstream media try to promote on a daily basis. JJ Redick. Shout out to Angry Old Hoops. Shout out to Sports and Fitness Rants. Shout out to Phenomenal Fitness. Shout out to Michael Jordan Fans Are the Best. Shout out to Sports Tea. Shout out to Man Down Sports. Shout out to Too Raw for Sports. Ticket TV. Shout out to Retro Heat Check. Shout out to Scap Attack. Shout out to Dreamers Pro. And shout out to Brandon Love Sports. And anybody else, 93Z. Shout out to 93Z. Anybody else who I forgot. Please continue to support all of these channels. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about any of the things we talked about today. You all have a truly, truly fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. All right.